Everybody in the comment section of every bully breed video says the same thing. Cane Corso, hardest bite force, toughest dog, end of conversation. I used to nod along with that too, until I actually sat down and looked at the numbers instead of the memes. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Strongest isn't one stat. It's bite force, pulling power, pain tolerance, structural density, and raw fighting instinct all mashed into a word that sounds simple but isn't. And when you actually split those apart, the Cane Corso loses more categories than it wins. Not because it's a bad dog. It's a phenomenal guardian breed, but because strongest got attached to it by internet consensus, not by anyone running a controlled comparison. Take the Kangal, Turkish livestock guardian built to solo a wolf pack in the mountains of Sivas, and its bite force gets measured well above the Corso's in every independent test I've come across. I remember reading a breeder's forum post. Guy ran a place outside Konya, said his Kangals would face down wolves twice their body weight, and just refused to back down. Not out of aggression, out of pure job-mandated stubbornness. That's a different kind of strength than a Corso's. A Corso is explosive, fast, built for a short, violent confrontation. A Kangal is built to grind out an entire night defending a flock. Ask yourself which one you'd actually want holding the line for 6 hours straight. Then there's the Caucasian Shepherd, and I'll admit something uncomfortable here. This breed scares me more than any Corso ever has. Not because it's more aggressive day to day, it's actually kind of a couch potato with its own family, but because the raw mass is absurd. We're talking dogs pushing past 200 pounds with a double coat so dense that a bite from another dog barely registers. I've seen footage of one shrugging off what would drop a Rottweiler and shaking it off like a mosquito bite. That's not hype. That's bone structure and coat density doing something a Corso's frame just can't replicate. I'll contradict myself for a second, because it's fair. Bite force numbers get thrown around online, with zero sourcing half the time. And I'm suspicious of any list that claims exact PSI figures for a dog nobody strapped a bite meter to. So take the numbers as directional, not gospel. What I trust more is structural logic, bone density, jaw muscle attachment points, chest depth. And on that logic alone, several mastiff-type breeds outclass the Corso before you even get to a fight. The Tosa Inu is the one people forget, because it's basically banned or restricted in half the countries that would want one. Bred specifically in Japan for organized dogfighting, under rules closer to sumo than street brawling. Patience, ring control, absorbing damage without panicking. A Corso will win on speed and aggression in the first 10 seconds. Nobody's actually figured out what happens after that, because so few exist outside Japan that real comparative data barely exists. That gap in the research bugs me more than it probably should. We're debating strongest dog arguments off vibes and YouTube compilations because the actual controlled data doesn't exist and probably never will, not ethically anyway. There's also the Boerboel, and this one I think gets slept on the hardest. South African farm guardian, bred to face down leopards on properties where calling for backup wasn't an option. A grown male Boerboel can hit 200 pounds of dense, low-slung muscle, and unlike the Corso's leaner athletic build, the Boerboel carries its weight like a loaded truck. I looked into a case out of the Limpopo region, a rancher's account of a Boerboel taking on a leopard that had gotten into a goat pen and walking away with damage but no retreat. A Corso in that same scenario is fast enough to dodge, sure, but dodging isn't what strongest is supposed to measure. Absorbing catastrophic damage and still winning the exchange is. Here's a pivot most people skip entirely. Pain tolerance isn't the same as strength, but everyone conflates them. Cane Corsos have surprisingly average pain tolerance for a mastiff-type breed. They'll yelp and disengage faster than a Corso fan wants to admit. Compare that to an American Bulldog, working line, not the showline couch version. Farm dogs bred to grab and hold a 1,500-pound bull by the nose and not let go, no matter how much that bull is thrashing. That's not brute strength either. That's a nervous system wired to ignore pain signals that would make almost any other dog release. I had a neighbor growing up, ran cattle outside a small town in East Texas, and his working bulldog took a hoof to the ribs mid-hold and didn't so much as flinch. The Corso, for all its muscle, isn't bred for that specific override. Pulling power is its own category too. And this is where the Corso really falls apart. Weight pull competitions, actual measured harness pulls, get dominated by breeds like the Alaskan Malamute and certain bulldog mastiff crosses that nobody puts on a strongest dog thumbnail because they don't look scary enough. A Malamute pulling 4 to 5 times its own body weight across snow for hours isn't going viral on a compilation account because it doesn't look like violence. It looks like work. And I think that's the actual bias running through this whole conversation. We've confused looks dangerous with is powerful, and those overlap less than people assume. And look, I'll say the petty opinion part out loud, since apparently I'm contractually required to have one. I think the Cane Corso got its strongest dog reputation, mostly from Instagram aesthetics. Cropped ears, that black coat, the low guttural bark and slow-motion reels. It looks like the strongest dog. It photographs like the strongest dog. That's marketing, not biomechanics. None of this means skip the Corso if that's the breed that fits your life. For a lot of people, it's exactly right. Loyal, protective, manageable if you actually train it early and don't just let it sit in a backyard building resentment. But if the entire premise of your fandom is toughest dog alive, you're standing on a claim that falls apart the second you compare it to a Kangal doing wolf duty solo, a Caucasian Shepherd shrugging off a full-grown Rottweiler, a Boerboel that doesn't retreat from a leopard, or a working bulldog that's had a bull's hoof in its ribs and kept its grip. The uncomfortable part isn't that the Corso is weak. It's that strongest was never really about strength. It was about which dog looked the most intimidating in a 9-second clip, and which fan base yelled the loudest about it online.